Alright, let's get into it. Happy Monday. Beautiful weekend. Sun's shining. Not a cloud in the sky. That's what I like to see. Not a cloud in the sky. Over the weekend, Commander-in-Chief Anthony Albanese tied the knot. Well done. Congratulations. Looked like a beautiful day. God, his wife's lovely, isn't she? He had his little dog there. Good on him. Might be getting in touch with his religious side, I think. You know, if he's going back to marriage. What do you reckon? One thing I don't understand though, Cobber, is that a lot of nasty criticism coming from the internet. A lot of nasty criticism. We used to be a lot funnier in Australia. We used to be a lot more witty. There's less of that. It's just anger and violence now. This is social media. Get a room. Go have a sook. Drink your soy. It's just nasty. Where's all the fun? Where's all the comedy? You know? We used to be a lot more enjoyable in this country. Let's bring that back. That's what I reckon. What else have we got? New South Wales police officer has been found guilty of dangerous driving. He had a parked car. Man with a parked car and someone rode into him. And he's been convicted. Now the man was Indigenous. In other words, Australian. Because we don't differentiate here on this channel. You're either Australian or you're not. And that's it. There's no race, but apparently, you know, the powers that be, they want it all race-based. So, riding a stolen motorbike, of course. Australian man riding a stolen motorbike collided with a parked car and the officer's been charged. What do we think about that? It's been found guilty of dangerous driving. What are we doing? What are we doing here? I want to find the court transcript. Can I do that? Does anyone know how to get access to that? Is that a freedom of information thing, or can I just? Do they just have a database where people can look up? Because surely you need to be able to search for it for the precedents and whatnot for future rulings. Must be able to search for it. I don't know. We'll have to have a look at that. Maybe something in the future. Bit crazy. Sitting there in his parked car, you know, he's parked it there to block the man off, clearly, because they were chasing him. Apparently he's been ordered to, you know, stop chasing him or whatever, because it, you know, was going to cause more problems on the road. And yeah, fair enough. And then, you know, but you're taught this in, you know, police training. Your vehicle is a weapon, and you have every right to use it to protect yourself and other people. So there you go. Australian man driving a stolen vehicle, collided with the officer, killed himself. Officer's been charged. Very interesting. John Larder, former paramedic, has had a response from a Freedom of Information Act about the potential DNA contamination in COVID mRNA vaccines and how testing was being conducted. Now, he's provided a link to the Freedom of Information Act. I wonder if I can share it with you. Because it's quite interesting. How do I do that? How do I share my screen? Who knows? Share. One tab. Just want one tab. There we go. Share that. Now that that's now if you're not on video looking at this, it's just black. There's nothing there. Page 70, page 73 now. No, nothing. There's nothing there. It's just black. So he's put in a Freedom of Information Act request for asking about DNA contamination. That was the response. But you know, that's what's going to happen, because to admit that anything that the government misjudged something or did anything wrong would be to admit, you know, corruption within the, and they're just not going to do that. Right, so it is what it is. I don't think we're going to get our answer, folks. And a lot of people are not going to let this go. That's what I'm going to tell you. Because they're angry. They're angry at how the government handled it during COVID. They're upset that they were locked down, some people for years. They're upset that their family members were locked down and forced to get vaccinated in some instances. And they're upset that a lot of people died of vaccine-related injuries. They're not going to let it go. And fair enough. But you're going to get a lot of pushback from the bureaucracy, because the bureaucracy doesn't like to admit that they've done wrong things. The bureaucracy is never wrong, people. That's what I've come to understand. Australia is dominating in the cricket. Of course we are. Of course we are. England hasn't won a match, I don't think, yet. Nor will they. That's my prediction. Doing very, very well. Don't know any of the players. Watched one game, but I can tell you right now, doing very, very well. I have it on good authority. That's what I know about it. Now, what are we really here to talk about? We are here to talk about autism. What is it? Where does it come from? Who started it? Now in Australia, we are quite retarded. Just want to put that out there. 1 in 10 people in Australia have some form of retardation, according to the NDIS. Now, right, it's forecasted to cost upwards of $70 billion by 2030, the National Disability Insurance Scheme. And that's just crazy. But that's the world we live in. Australians are more retarded than ever. That is the world we live in. Right, but autism specifically, what is it? It's not neurodegenerative. It's behavioural. It's social. It's communicative. That's what I've gathered. I picked up some books. We're going to be reading it over the next few days. Look at that one. The Science and Fiction of Autism. That'll be good. Autism, an integrated view from neurocognitive clinical and intervention research. Yeah, about that. That one there. Cognitive development in atypical children. Alright. High functioning individuals with autism. Sensing a theme here. And that one. Oh, that one doesn't have a cover. What's that one called? Prevention and treatment of mental retardation. We'll save that one for last. Now I'm going to read these books. And I'm going to tell you what I find. Because what I want to know is, what causes it? What is it? Do as many Australians have it as is reported upon? Because the diagnostic criteria is quite broad. And that's not good. We don't want Australians running around with autism. Okay? We want Australians to be healthy and normal. Now, when I was growing up, autistic people were like the spastics, alright? They had some sort of mental retardation inclusive in the disease, you know? They were the autistic ones, you know? Now, it seems like everyone's autistic. If you have trouble communicating with another person because you're socially anxious, you know, that's one of the criteria. Alright, so where did it come from? Well, auto, derived from Greek, which means self. There you go. A little bit of knowledge there for you. Dr. Leo Kanner developed the first psychiatric program at Johns Hopkins in Maryland. Well done, Leo. Good on you, mate. He was a psychologist, of course. Case study of 11 children. Now, originally, he was, I believe, labeling a lot of children as schizophrenic. But thankfully, we're all empiricists here. He, looked at the sort of intricacies of the behavioural output of the children and recognised that it was different from schizophrenia. All right. How is it different? Well, separate behavioural problems. They seemed more aloof and less concerned with the external world and the events that were happening around them. They seemed to be more singularly focused and were unable to move from task to task. Then there was a fella after him, Henry Haggard, can't remember, someone Asperger. He was a very good man. He set up a foundation for some children who had Asperger's, the first cases of Asperger's. Unfortunately, that foundation was bombed during the war. Yep, a lot of places were bombed, his included. A lot of his research was lost. But then it exploded in America. And then to the rest of the Western world. We started diagnosing it, studying it. A lot of studies happening here in WA. Very good. Now, autism generally requires a diagnostic team to evaluate the child individually and together. Now, I've been reading about this. There's a book called Diagnosing Autism Spectrum Disorders by Donald Gallo. That's what I've been reading. Very difficult to diagnose children with autism, right? This is something not to be taken lightly. And some of the more recent material that I've been coming across has been saying, this is something, that can be found in 1 to 2 hours. You can get a diagnosis of autism. And not so. Not according to Dr. Gallo. This is something that takes hours and hours and needs to be cross-examined by multiple different professionals, and they need to converge together on similar diagnoses before it's cemented in concrete. That's what I've come to understand about it. So if you have been diagnosed, or your child has been diagnosed, and they've sort of had one session and gone, look, your kid's a spastic, get a second opinion, because this is something that should not be taken lightly. And once you're labelled autistic, your child's going to wear that for the rest of their life. And do we want that? No, we want healthy Australians, right? Because contrary to popular belief, it's not good to be autistic, okay? Does that mean it's bad? No, it just means it's not good. It's not good to be incapable of socialising with other people. And if you're wearing a label, you're going to start identifying with that label, and you're going to find it even more difficult, okay? It's going to snowball. And we don't want that. Nobody wants a snowball. Right? Not the fun type of snowball anyway. It's a negative snowball. Going down a hill copper. Down a hill and into some trees and forest cobs. Okay? That's the snowball we're talking about. Very dangerous, dark one. Right? If your child starts associating himself with this label, walking around saying I'm autistic, some people even use it to justify their poor behaviour. That's not on either, is it? We don't want that. You're not autistic, you're just an asshole. That's what I say anyway. Right, so this is not something that should be taken lightly. If you are someone labelled autistic and you've only had a couple of sessions, keep pressing them. Seek another opinion. Because the criteria is quite broad. And when we start getting into it and having a look at, what's really involved, it's a matter. It becomes a matter of severity, and essentially, if you're exhibiting some of these criteria that they outline, but you're not as severe as, say, someone who, like I mentioned before, who's probably spastic or whatever, then you can still fall under the category and be labelled autistic. And I query whether that's really what you want. Do you really want this label for the rest of your life? Because 20 years ago we didn't want labels. We just wanted to be like everyone else. Now everyone's got a label. Who cares? Let's just be Australian. Let's just live our lives, pursuing our own interests, cooperating together for a better world. That's what I want, without labels. Okay? How good? Right. To be diagnosed with autism. A person, this is out of the Diagnostic and Statistics Manual. Okay, we're up to version 5 now, I think. DSM 5. Third revision though, I think, so they're updating it. This is straight out of their definition. To be diagnosed with autism, a person must present with at least 6 items from the social, communication and behavioural domains. Right, we mentioned that. With at least 2 from the social domain and at least 1 each from the communication and behavioural domain. Alright, so what are the criteria in each domain? Let's have a look. Autism spectrum disorder. Persistent deficits in social communication and social interaction across multiple contexts as manifested by all of the following, currently or by history. Alright, this is the social dimension. Deficits in social emotional reciprocity, ranging, for example, from abnormal social approach and failure of normal back and forth conversation to reduced sharing of interests, emotions or affect, to failure to initiate to respond to social interactions. Right, if I'm looking at you and I tell you, how are you? How's it going, copper? And you're incapable of responding, or maybe just a prick and you just ignore me. Maybe I'm a bit ugly for you. But let's just say you are autistic. No reciprocity. You're incapable of understanding that what I've said is a exchange of greeting. Okay? Number 2, deficits in non-verbal communicative behaviour used for social interaction, ranging, for example, from poorly integrated verbal and non-verbal communication to abnormalities in eye contact and body language, or deficits in understanding and use of gestures. 2, a total lack of facial expressions and non-verbal communication. Alright? Number 3, deficits in developing, maintaining and understanding relationships, ranging, for example, from difficulties adjusting behaviour to suit various social contexts, to difficulties in sharing imaginative play or in making friends, to absence in interest in peers. Right, now, this is not me just coming into a group and deciding that I'm not going to indulge in the idiosyncrasies of the group because I'm in a bad mood that day. This is, really incapable of sort of observing social cues, and you'd be able to pick this out. If a person was, really autistic, they'd be essentially doing their own thing. And it's not social anxiety either. They're not sitting there sort of cowed about, hoping that nobody speaks to them. They'll be, they'll be off. They'll still be interacting, but it won't be in line with the social cues of the group, right? Category B. This is the behavioural. Restricted repetitive patterns of behavior, interests, or activities, as manifested by at least two of the following. Currently or by history. Examples illustrative, not exhaustive. Stereotyped or repetitive motor movements, use of objects or speech. Right, that's your hand flapping. Right? Hand flapping, head banging against the wall, that type of behavior. Right? This is very, see what I mean? Like, if it's a matter of severity, you know, does that constitute repetitive behavior? My neck's a bit tight. No, it's the rocking. You hear the chair for added effect, can't ya? It's the rocking like that. It's the hand flapping. Okay? Not good. Insistence on sameness. That wasn't very well articulated, was it? Insistence on sameness. That's better. Inflexible adherence to routines or ritualized patterns of verbal or non-verbal behavior. Example: extreme distress at small changes, difficulties with transitions, rigid thinking patterns, greeting rituals, need to take same route or eat same food every day. Right, this is not, again, I like watermelon. I'm going to have it today and tomorrow. This is very sort of almost, dogmatic type adherence to singular activities, right? Like this person will eat watermelon going on for months, and if you ever try and offer them a grape instead, right, they'll start flipping out. Okay? That's what we're really talking about here. Right? It's not just, oh, I really enjoy lemon juice. Terrible example. Orange juice. It's a little bit sweeter, isn't it? More people like orange juice. It's not just enjoyment of orange juice. You have a glass of orange juice. No. These people will be hyper fixated on singular instances of their world, okay? And highly restricted, fixated interests that are abnormal in intensity. There, see, there you go. That's number 3. That should be incorporated into 2, I reckon, but who knows? Preoccupation with unusual objects. Hyper or hyperactivity to sensory input or unusual interest in sensory aspects of the environment. Example: apparent indifference to pain, temperature, adverse responses to specific sounds or textures, excessive smelling or touching of objects. Right, so you can see how it gets hazy. Like all of these things, and the examples I've given you, just anecdotal examples. It's a matter of severity. This is why, do we really want to be labeling some of these people who, are they singularly interested in orange juice and they become visibly and viscerally upset and aggressive when you take their orange juice away? Or is it just they're enjoying orange juice and, next month it'll be watermelon? Who knows? How much are we really trying to sort of, single out these people in our society? Because, I think what's going to end up happening, and what might already be happening, is that some people who really don't need to be labelled as this autistic spectrum disorder, they're getting treatment for things they might not even need treatment for, and you're sort of overlooking the real spastics, the ones that really need help. And we want to give more help to them, right? Surely. And the other ones who are, more or less normal, just let them be. They're alright. They're high functioning. Let them be high functioning. And they even classify in here, this is important, symptoms must be present in the early developmental period, but may not become fully manifest until social demands exceed limited capacities, right? Like, so you can really tell early on, and I mean like within the first year, that these people have, there's other things going on. Right? It's not just it's taken them a few extra months to learn dad or mum or juice. No, like the severe language difficulties and the hand flapping and all the other goings on. You know, these are really sort of significant signs. And the other thing is, they have a separate term for, like, not a term, but like they have a separate diagnostic criteria for autistic individuals with mental retardation. So it's not even mental retardation is not even an inherent feature of the disorder now. It's a separate thing. So I query how much we're really doing people a disservice by, you know, labelling them. Right. Now, let's round out our bigotry with some statistics. Round it out. Very often, 66 to 85%. Now this is back in 2013, I believe. 66 to 85% of people diagnosed with autism will also have some form of intellectual disability. Right, now again, this is not today, this is 2013, I think was the book I was reading. 2010, there we go, 2010 was way back then. 66 to 85% will also have an intellectual disability. Right, so the mental retardation is not an inherent feature of autism. It's different. It's a separate thing. You can have autism without having intellectual disability. Okay? So now it's a question of severity, by the looks of it. Are you functioning or are you not functioning? Can you have a conversation or can you not? Even minimally. And I think the people who can, let's stop labelling them. Let's let them get on with it. Live their lives, pursuing their own interests. Surely. Right? That's what I reckon. Let's get it done. What else is important? A lot of different ways of diagnosing these children. A lot of different scales. The Australian scale for Asperger's. Autism behaviour checklist. Autism diagnostic interview. The autism screening tool. The autistic diagnostic observation schedule. Childhood autism rating scale. The Gilliam autism rating scale. Those are the only ones I wrote down. There's more. A lot of different criteria. Can we agree? Don't know. I'm not an expert. But there's a lot of different criteria that a lot of different people are using in order to diagnose these illnesses. And the intellectual disability is, you know, doesn't need to be a part of it. All you need to exhibit is those features I've just outlined to you. You know? The social, communication and behavioural dimensions, and it's a matter of degree. Like, you've got your dimensions. There's your social, your behavioural, your communication, etc. Right? You need to have some out of those dimensions. But then, like, to what degree of severity is it? Is it here? Are they functioning? Or is it way out there? Are they real spastic? Like, you know, these people need real treatment and real help. What about these people? Just here. They might exhibit the features, but they're high functioning. They're capable of holding a job and communicating with people. Why are we labelling them as autistic? That's what I want to know. That's one of the things we're going to try and find out. Right, some more statistics. It's 1%. It's 1 in 100,000. 1 in 10,000 rather, excuse me. 1 in 10,000 in Australia. That's conservative estimates. Alright, they reckon it's more. So you're really seeing a problem here where we're sort of, well, that's the question I'm posing. Are we over-diagnosing people? The argument is that we're just getting better at diagnosing, but, you know, I've just given you a whole bunch of different scales and the criteria is so broad. Are we getting better at diagnosing, or are we letting more features and the severity of the diagnosis become incorporated into our way of diagnosing people? That's what I really want to know. A lot of them try and differentiate between autism and Asperger's. Now, Asperger's, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but we'll just run with it. Asperger's is even more high functioning again. So, but it's all classified under the autism spectrum disorder. Now, I should say the reason they call it a spectrum, a lot of the times it's been described to me where it's like a scale of retardation where you sort of have like between 1 and 10 how spastic is your child. It's not a slider, it's a spectrum. Right? So you can have multiple different features from, you might have, like I said, it needs to be two from the social dimension, one from the communication, and one from the behavioural, at least of those ones. But whatever those are could be different. Like you could have hyper-photosensitivity to light, and then no emotional reciprocity, or understanding of social cues, and those things all could converge into your vein of autism or whatever. And another person could have hyper-repetitive motor functions like the hand flapping, but no photosensitivity to light, right? So that's why it's a spectrum, because there's multiple different things all converging, and that's why it's highly individualized. Okay, it's not like trisomy 21, okay, the Down syndrome, where there are like definable features that incorporate, the individuals with that illness, like the chromosomal thing in their face and whatever. There are severities and degrees with that, but those, very definable again. Whereas autism, very singular, dependent on the individual. And apparently they incorporate Asperger's and a couple of others, Rett's I think is the other one, all into the umbrella of autism spectrum disorder for research purposes, okay? Because the features are all, I think the only difference between Asperger's and autism is literally the high functioning. Like most individuals with Asperger's will be able to hold a conversation and be high functioning. And so like that again goes back to my query. If they're high functioning, why are we labeling them? Okay? There's no cure. We knew that. It is a cognitive illness. I'm reading one book called The Neuroscience of Autism. That's what I'll be reading today. That'll be what I'll talk about tomorrow, most likely. Hopefully we'll get some insight into what's really going on. What areas of the brain are affected? Is it the prefrontal cortex? Is it the cingulate gyrate? No idea. We're going to find out. We're going to find out together. Right. Oh, it is 1 in 100. 1 in 100. I've got it here. Per ABS. 1%. 1 in 100 per the ABS. Autism Spectrum Australia puts it at 1 in 40. Now these statistics are their prevalence and not incidence. They make that explicit, so what's the difference? Let's find out. What's the difference between prevalence and incidence? Should I specify medical? Let's just see what it says. We'll ask Grok. Incidence. Number of new cases of a disease condition that develop in a population during a specific time period. Right. Prevalence. Total number of existing cases. Okay. So incidence measures how quickly new cases are appearing. Prevalence is how widespread the disease is in the population. Okay, so it's all prevalence. I've read, 2.5 books about it. It's all prevalence. Now in relation to the inability to switch tasks and the hyperfixation, I want to know about tech and that role that it plays, because can we include technology in our diagnostic criteria for hyperfixation? Intuitively, I want to say no. And the reason I want to say that is because the tech is built to capture attention. It's engineered that way. So if you've got a 1-year-old or a 2-year-old playing around with a phone or an iPad or whatever, they're going to be hyperfixated on it because it's engineered to be that way, right? It's engineered to capture their attention. So how are we diagnosing? Are we including tech in our diagnoses? Is that what we're sort of measuring? Because based on this book, Diagnosing Autism, like the parents will come in with the child by referral, or maybe now the parents, a lot of parents back then didn't want their child to be autistic, which is kind of, intuitively how I feel about it as well. Like, that's not something you want to bear your child with, of course. So a lot of them were obviously not happy to be there, or they're in denial, or whatever the case may be. And so the doctor would have a conversation with them, and then he'd observe the child. What's the child doing? Is he hyperfixated on a bit of string or whatever? Or like a bit of rope? And is he hand flapping? Banging his head against the wall or whatever? Maybe he's autistic. But, that would then require a lot more involved diagnostic work, like this guy's talking about 6 hours of between him and another professional, where then they'd compare their findings, and it'd be a whole, it's very involved. So, again, if you've sort of come in going, my child's, not looking at me or whatever, he's looking at the screen, your doctor goes, maybe he's autistic, get a second opinion. It should be very, very involved. That's what I've come to understand about it. Maybe someone can shed a little bit of light on that. I don't know. And, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the medical industry has evolved and adapted since 2010. Who knows? But I'd be seeking more opinions. You don't want your child labelled autistic. That's for sure. Okay? So the last book out of those ones, which I haven't, so we're going to read, what's it called? Is that it? Where is it? Anxious Generation, Jonathan Haidt, what we're going to read, because I want to know what the effects of technology have on children. Don't know if he's looked at just social media, but technology in general. Like if they're walking away, anxious, they don't want to give the phone up. We should be having a look at technology rather than just labelling it autism, I think, is what I'm taking away from it. Now, this ban that they've got, a lot of people have been talking about that ban, they're banning social media. Children are going to find another platform. Okay? They're not going to stop using technology because the government said so. Regardless of what you feel about whether it's right or not, I don't agree with the policy. I think parents should be the one to mediate their child. They wheeled out some poor old woman who'd lost her child or whatever because social media, access to social media. It's the parent's responsibility. And yes, it's very sad that the mother, lost, no woman should have, or man should ever have to go losing a child, but the responsibility is on the parents to mediate what their child indulges in, and it's not for a government to say, because eventually everything's going to be illegal. That's the sort of corollary of that argument. The more the government reaches inside the home, the onus needs to be on the parents. So I don't agree with the policy, but there you have it. The policy's coming in. Children are going to find another way. They're going to go onto other platforms, and there's content where Omegle, if anyone's ever heard of that, you just press a button and you're met with some random stranger on the internet. That's just one of the platforms I can see children going on. They're not banning Roblox, which has got issues. Issues with people trying to contact your children. Okay, so if you're a parent, don't rely on this policy. But the sort of parents who are as well, again, this policy is not for the sort of parents concerned about the sort of things their children are indulging in are already. This is the thing; they're already not letting their child use the technology anyway. So this is an education problem and not a political one. Okay, the children are going to find another platform to use, and if you're nonchalant and ignorant about what they're doing, they're going to be using things that they shouldn't be using. Okay, it's founded in good faith. Social media is probably not the best place for a child under 16 to be hanging around. Okay, there's a lot of negativity, a lot of problems, political violence, and all that sort of stuff. That's all exacerbated online because of the algorithms. But yeah, big problems. Right, so tomorrow we're going to look at, hopefully, provided I can read enough, to give some information on the neuroscience of it. We're going to be looking at autism all week. That's this week's topic, autism. Thought we'd kick off summer with a bit of good light-hearted autism. How about that? How's that sound? Light-hearted autism. There's the topic for you. Light-hearted autism. Spectrum disorder. Yeah, there we go. Yeah. That's it, I think. That's the end of the show. We're done. Monday's out of the way. Until tomorrow.